how many of those do you get a week? 10, 5, whatever the number you get.
Yeah.
How come none of them ever go to the next level, which is make it look like they're like a real person who posts stuff about real shit so that you go, oh, well, but they never do that. It's just pictures of them.
Yeah.
Right. And that's it. So I don't know.
All right. It's time to share. We'll start off with a little discussion of, is Giannis really hurt? I think that's a good thing to go with. And then we'll kind of just go from there.
I'll tell you, he tanked it. Because anybody knows that you can make your knee completely bend the other way.
Well,
Joe Theismann did it. It didn't hurt him.
If you were able to actually do that, then they would have been doing it at Duke years ago. That would have been part of their flop routine. All right, I am ready when you are.
So far, I am nowhere right now.
Oh, you're a real nowhere man. Sitting in your nowhere land. How many of these jagoffs are going to show up for when he's released from jail to cheer him on and shit with the signs and stuff? How many of those people are going to show up?
I don't think that many.
I don't know. It feels like.
I don't think.
Fine.
Okay. Feeling good, looking good.
Feeling good, feeling carefree.
Okay. Here we go. Ready?
Ready.
You know, I just so you know, I don't know if you noticed, when I had the lighting like this, it washes me out. It does. It washes me out. Mr. Hitchcock, which way do you want me to look?
We're going to need some fill lighting over here. I don't want to be washed out.
Look how much richer that is.
Oh, that is better. Yeah, your lovely olive skin tones shine through there.
There you go. What did that mean?
Nothing.
What did you mean?
No, I mean nothing. Sure.
It is the Brad and Britt cast. We're glad you were with us today. We're live on Facebook and YouTube and other live stuff, wherever that's available here in the 1:30 hour Eastern. And as we begin today, we learned earlier this morning that Bill Cosby will be leaving prison very, very soon, and his conviction for sexual assault was overturned by the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. 2 years in prison. And boy, what weird timing that is, considering what else is swirling around right now, because it doesn't matter what happens. Everything's a Rorschach test, right?
Yeah.
You're either on one side or the other with everything that comes down the line. And on a day that precedes the day that the Trump organization is about to get tagged for all kinds of things, the indictments are coming down. You almost have to steel yourself to go, fuck, Bill Cosby got away with it. Gee, where have I heard about that before? Who else do we know in public who gets away with no matter what? Although you could say, hey, Bill Cosby's in his 80s. He had to spend 2 years in prison. And you know what? I'd almost, this like, let's make a deal. Remember when it would be, they'd bring the box down.
Yeah.
And whoever was the host, whether it's Monty Hall or Wayne Brady or whoever else has been hosting the show, it's you either can take what's in the box. I'm not going to show you what's in the box, or here's $100, right? Some people would take the 100 and then they'd reveal what's in the box. If I said to you tomorrow, today, yesterday, that, all right, we can't get Trump on a lot of good shit because he's too evil. He's too mob boss like. He's got his lieutenant, Alan Weisselberg, who is prepared to go die in prison and not flip on him. But we can get Donald Trump for 2 years, just like Bill Cosby. Would you take that, or would you say, no, Trump should spend the rest of his life in prison for what he's done, and he should be 100% bankrupted. So should his company. So should his children.
Yeah.
Or 2 years in prison. What would you do? Would you take the 2 years? Because he might get away with everything.
It's not really fair because Cosby got to spend all of that shitty year of 2020 isolated behind bars, and then he should have been out there catching COVID and dying. I mean, that's what should have been happening, right? He should have been out there in the gin pop, getting something in his lungs and then croaking. That would have been fantastic.
Right. Way to ruin the concept. Way to kill it off with a disease. Not fair. All right. Of course, there's no answer to that. But did you see the initial report on how this sort of happened? Because I guess what it was there was an original case,
right? And
the court decided that they were going to cut kind of a deal with Cosby for no prison time in the criminal case, and then they had the civil case, and he got convicted on that because. They did the civil case, and then they used testimony in the civil case to reopen the criminal case. And the Pennsylvania Supreme Court says that was not right. That was not fair. But again, the most interesting thing, because everything has glue attached to it here, the prosecutor who originally cut the deal against Bill Cosby and said, let him off the, we're just going to cut a deal here, no prison time. It was Bruce Castor. He was one of those pieces of shit that stood up there and defended Trump, right? Mm-hmm. And I think we were wondering, where did he find Trump? Probably was turned on to this guy by people who said, "Hey, look, here's a guy who was able to get Bill Cosby as the prosecutor to not go to jail. That sounds like your kind of guy. He'll defend anything, even as a prosecutor." So he flipped, right, and defended Trump last year. And man,
well, I guess the real surprise was that Trump didn't end up pardoning Cosby on the way out. But I guess that could have happened. And then once he pardoned Cosby, giving him a Medal of Freedom, he would have getting him up there and giving him something else.
Britt, he was so busy. There were so many other things to take care of.
So it's not that the Cosby people didn't reach out with a big fat check. It had nothing to do with that. Here, Mr. Trump, here's some money. Pardon me. That's not what happened.
I'm going to ascribe what you've just said in the last 30 seconds to just stupid Brad and Britt yakking, right? But I also do not believe it is impossible for what you just said to be true. I do not believe for 1 second that it would be impossible through whatever channels you would get to Trump to try to get him to give you a part, that did not happen. I don't. I think it could have happened. I really think it could have happened. When you think about the people that he pardoned for other things, I don't even want. This is terrible. Bill Cosby would not have been the worst guy. Not even close.
It's true.
It's
very true.
No disrespect to all the women involved in this. And what is it, 57 women who were ready to testify?
Yeah, 57.
This is And so there's going to be from every direction. Was this a case? And I'm just going to go through the initial list of things that are said about it. Was this another black guy who got railroaded unfairly and sent to prison? Because that happens a lot in America. Doesn't matter whether you're rich or poor. If you're black, you're on the wrong side of the justice system. Was this a case of just another celebrity ultimately getting a break in the end? Because we give celebrity, but remember, the other thing was he's getting charged because he's a celebrity. It's not fair. So everybody can play both sides of the fence here. And is this going to be another brick in the wall that has been built around the idea that, don't you understand why women don't press charges? Because this will happen. They never get held accountable for it, even if you know it's true, even if you have 57 other similar victims. I mean, he in that case, then he only did 2 years. It's not relevant what his age is. So, but you can paint this 100 different ways.
Plus, if he's, I mean, if they again, as much fun as we're having with this, if he's retried, they go ahead and put him on trial again. I mean, these women have to relive that experience again. It's horrible for them, right? To go through all of this, and
I'm pretty sure
they can't try it. It's over.
Well, this was a judgment by the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. This is it.
And it was a split court, by the way, that said that the court did not unanimously agree that this man should be let out of prison. Justice David Wecht.
Score there?
I don't have the score, and I can't look up the judges either. But you can look up this one while I'm reading this. David Wecht, W-E-C-H-T, Wecht. You can see who appointed that jerk. He wrote for the split court saying that Cosby had relied on the former prosecutor's decision not to charge him, and he later gave potentially incriminating testimony in the Constant civil trial. The trial judge had allowed just one other accuser to testify at Cosby's first trial, and when the jury deadlocked, however, he then allowed 5 other accusers to testify at the retrial about their experiences with Cosby in the 80s, and that's what they're saying tainted the actual trial right there.
All right. Judge Wecht, who is an associate justice of the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania, he is the son of that pathologist, Cyril Wecht.
Okay.
You know who I'm talking about?
I don't.
Cyril Wecht is one of the go-to pathologists. You see him on all the crime shows. He's number 1 or number 2 on the list of famous coroners who, when somebody famous dies and the family wants to, I've seen, anyway, this is the guy's son.
Yeah.
And Wecht, I think, was famous for the single bullet theory in the assassination of John F. Kennedy. So
interesting.
He's been, anyway. So this is his son, and it appears that Judge Wecht is a Democrat. He ran for Supreme Court in 2015, and there you go. So
Cyril Wecht himself was a former chairperson of the Allegheny County Democratic Party from 78 to 84. He's still with us, by the way. He's 80.
Yes, he is. Yes,
80 years of age, it looks like.
So this is the big question, Britt. This is 90. The big question. Jeez. Does the Cosby Show appear back on TV in reruns?
Yeah, I think Netflix jumps on that train right now. I think no, wait a minute. Fox Nation presents the new Cosby Show. That's going to be on that's part of your subscription to Fox Nation. I want to tell the people about something. I'm going to get back to criticizing the black people. Pull up your pants. It's one of those things where they put him on Fox Nation and he rants about black folks.
We certainly missed Bill Cosby's take on the affairs of the last 2 years in the country, going back even before the killing of George Floyd. Because can you imagine the things that he would have come out and said? Wow.
If you want to not get shot by
if you want to not get shot by the police, pull up the pants, please.
Please. That's what they
or if you don't want to get shot by the police, damn it, get your taillights fixed. Get them fixed.
Make sure you go and have the taillights for Princeton Bill Cosby, for Cosby brand taillights to last forever, please. I don't know.
It's a big win for Jell-O pudding pops. So they still make those things.
Yeah, when you go back to, honestly, when you go back to the 80s, he was endorsing freaking everything. It wasn't just Coke. It wasn't just Texas Instruments. It was every fucking thing that came down the pike. They were like, "Can you endorse this?" And like, yes, I'll just do whatever. He was, huge Fortune 500 companies.
Have you heard a bunch of different people tell the Bill Cosby story on Gilbert Gottfried's podcast?
No, I haven't heard.
Apparently, the rule was that during the taping of the Cosby Show, Mr. Cosby very often needed to take an hour in the middle of the day to what he would say was train Chinese women in the art of cooking. He had some bullshit thing about how he would sneak out every day and do something weird. Of course, there's no evidence that can prove that. It's just a story, and I like it.
That's remarkable. It's a horrible thing that's happening today. Now, going back to what you said, it looks like today is going to be the day that the Trump organization is going to get their comeuppance there. That's the headline of the Wall Street Journal. Trump Organization CFO Alan Weisselberg expected to be charged Thursday, so that's tomorrow. So it's coming down the pike. I mean, to me, there's a Lucy football situation here because we kept expecting things to happen to Trump, kept expecting, and now maybe at some point he's going to actually answer for some of the bullshit and some of the illegal stuff that he's done. Is that going to happen?
Well, this is the put up or shut up moment for everybody involved here. Now, you have to believe that the prosecutors in the case, Cyrus Vance Jr., who was about to retire as the big prosecutor, the DA in Manhattan there, he doesn't want to leave with a loss. He doesn't want to bring a case that he can't win. So he must have the goods somewhere on these. And of course, we never know what they really have until they show it. We can speculate. You can listen to every legal expert who's ever come down the pike, and they never really know until the moment of truth. But the two views of this really are this. If Weisselberg doesn't flip, and this is according to Daniel Goldman, the big Democratic lawyer involved in the first impeachment case. He spoke for the Democrats during that day. You see him all the time, Daniel. He says if they can't flip Weisselberg, they're fucked. They have no case. They're not going to be able to do anything. Michael Cohen, who was right in there, was in the room where it happened for 10 years and signed off on things when they happened and carried out the dirtiest of the dirty work for Trump when Trump wanted it to happen, says that doesn't matter. They have so many pieces of paper. They have so much written evidence that it doesn't matter what Weisselberg says. It is on paper. And the only thing that makes me worry about that is all we've heard forever, and we know it's true. Trump doesn't write anything down. Trump doesn't do email. Trump doesn't do any of that. So, he wants no record of anything that he does individually that connects him to anything bad that's ever happened. And so is that enough for them to go into court on behalf of Donald Trump when the Trump organization is charged with all kinds of criminal activity, with Weisselberg, the chief financial officer, acting as the guy who runs the place? Is Donald Trump actually able to say, I'm at arm's length with all these things you're talking about? I had no idea. I don't think that's going to work. And here's why. Because Donald Trump, and they could find 1,000 different examples of him, probably on The Apprentice itself. They could go from the public video, not, they don't have to find the outtakes, where Trump would talk about how he misses nothing. A good CEO is on top of everything, right? Because that's why we elected Donald Trump, right, Trumpers? Because he was the best businessman ever. And the best businessman ever doesn't sit back and allow some fat Jew accountant from Long Island run his company for him, right? Excuse me for the characterization. I forgot to mention he's bald. That's I
Oh, well,
apologize
okay. Well, that
for
makes
that.
sense.
Yeah,
Yeah, sure.
yeah. And by the way, thanks Weisselberg for pushing that good stereotype on behalf of the anti-Semites in the world. Nice job. And by the way, it was what 3-4 years ago that I used to say that Michael Cohen was the worst Jew in the world.
Yeah.
That sometimes competed with Jared Kushner, sometimes dumbest Jew in the world. I'm sorry, both of them have to step aside now. It's Weisselberg.
He's the guy.
He's the worst. Oh no, he's the worst because he thought he was the smartest, but he's the dumbest. And the dumbest is because he appears ready to go right over the cliff for Donald Trump and spend the rest of his life in prison. So think of it this way: Weisselberg could spend the rest of his life in prison. Bill Cosby out.
Yeah, it's not
Bill
right.
Cosby out. Weisselberg in. But Cohn says that doesn't matter. So if Cohn is right and Weisselberg refuses to crack and just start singing, then they're going to be able to nail the company. They're going to force it to liquidate its assets. They're going to do all the kinds of things that you do when you go after corporations that operate in an illicit manner. And I know that some people, well, it was just shit like, oh, they paid for his granddaughter's private school in Manhattan, and they gave him cars, and they let Weisselberg maybe live in Trump Tower free of rent for a few years. That's not a big deal. You're going to ruin the entire company over whatever amount of money. That's the answer is yes. The answer is absolutely yes, and I'll tell you why. And because the rest of us have to follow the rules when it comes time to pay our taxes. Now, you can take a chance and you can lie and you can cheat and you can pretend, but if you get caught, you're going to get trouble. And if you have a personal accountant, the accountant signs off on your tax returns.
Correct.
And if the accountant knows that you're doing something wrong or they're doing something wrong on your behalf, the accountant is fucked also. You can't have it both ways. And I'll give you an example. I had a fringe benefit. Actually, I still have a fringe benefit from the company we used to work for, and I'm glad I have it. But you know what?
Oh yeah,
I have to pay taxes on that fringe benefit to this very day.
And you make sure that you do that, right?
And I'm happy to do it. I get a 1099 and I'm happy to do it.
Sure.
And if I said I refuse to do it, I would be in trouble. And that's just the way the world works. And not only is that illegal and it should not be allowed, and it's the tip of the iceberg.
Mm-hmm.
You know that the Trump organization didn't run fully legitimate in terms of the way they move money around, the way he compensated his children so that they could live in the lifestyle to which they became accustomed. You think that there were all kinds of legitimate receipts that are there to show that Don Jr. and Ivanka paid taxes before they got off the ground? Were they living in some shit apartment in on the Lower East Side before they pulled themselves up by their bootstraps?
Yeah, they were.
Now have multi-million-dollar homes.
Yeah, they were I think commuting from Piscataway. I mean, every day it was awful. Getting on the subway, getting on the train.
Right. So I think what we know really is the proverbial tip of the iceberg, and that company is probably going to become. This is my prediction. It will become the prototype of a corporate money laundering front that will stand the test of time in law schools forever. Because I think it's been a fraud since Fred Trump handed Donald that first $1 million when he got out of college to get him going. I'll bet you that Fred Trump, along with his lawyer Roy Cohn, schooled Donald Trump in the art of what they thought was undetectable deception, of federal tax laws and tax rules. And you've probably seen the interview with the guy that Trump hired, this must have been 25, 30 years ago, to run one of his casinos in Atlantic City. And the guy walked in and said to Trump, we're losing shitloads of money. It's terrible. And Trump's response to that was, change the numbers. The guy says, no, I can't change the numbers. These are the numbers. Trump says, I don't accept that. Change the numbers. What more do you need to know? Oh, wait a minute. I get it. That's the only time he ever did that, right? That's the only time. Well, one time.
And he didn't mean it the way you think he meant it. He meant it in a completely different way, in a very innocuous, non-criminal way. That's how he meant it. Ron Fischetti, who is a lawyer for the former president, Donald Trump, says the Manhattan DA will not charge Donald Trump himself. And he says that they've got stuff against the organization. I think you're right. I'd be okay with the kids going to jail. I'd be okay. Particularly Don Jr. Have you seen some of these crazy drug-filled rants that he's going on that are about Joe Biden and stuff? It's obvious that the guy is hopped up on goofballs. And that's the story there. Donald Trump Jr. mocked for bizarre video rant at Joe Biden. I think this one's gone viral and more than 2 million people have seen it. And he's clearly, I don't know if he's on crank or meth or bath salts or whatever, but it seems that he is definitely high and or possibly drunk as he goes on these particular things. And, a drunk guy or a high guy in prison, that's where the really good drugs are, Brad, when you get behind bars.
Well, Britt, I think you underestimate the level of excitement that could be generated by a session between the sheets with Kimberly Guilfoyle for a while.
Wow.
And so Don Jr. probably straight out of that went on these rants.
So he's high on Kimberly Guilfoyle's sex? Is that what you're telling me? He's so high from the after effects of banging Kimberly Guilfoyle.
She brings new meaning to the word screaming.
I think he's the one that's screaming. I think he's the one with the safe word. And then he's so high from the effects of that, he immediately has to make some sort of. Although now, and this kind of strikes me as well. Do you think Donald Trump has had the prison fetish fantasy about his own daughter? Because I somehow think he does. I think he's imagining her sans makeup in the orange jumpsuit, and then of course he plays the guard coming in. I'm sorry, I'm going to take away your water privileges or something like that. And then obviously he engages in some sort of incredibly inappropriate behavior, which you would not be able to see on some websites that I don't even frequent. But something tells me that Donald Trump has had that sort of prison fetish sex thing about his own daughter. And he's sort of kind of hoping that plays out in some way, shape, or form if she goes behind bars.
Well, think about this. The only two Trumps left standing will be Tiffany and Barron. Right.
Well, those guys are ripe for some sort of Hulu show. I'm not sure if you could get those guys to sign some sort of contract and have some sort of reality show about growing up Trump or whatever they're doing. I'm not positive. So, yeah, Fischetti says that they came to him and said, we're not going to charge Trump himself, but we're going to take down about 50 people.
The guy who's 85 years old.
I think he is like the only guy that could possibly get to work for them now who has some sort of law license and is cleared by the bar to work in any state. That's the only guy that's left. Remember, they would bring on.
I'm not saying that because you're 85, you're automatically not capable of being a lawyer. I'm not saying that. But I want to apply the same standard that we do when we talk about presidents. Joe Biden is 78, and Joe Biden is not the same Joe Biden that he was at 68, 58, or 48. We know that. But he's able to perform the duties of president good enough. He knows the policies. He knows what he's talking about. He's got a clear head. He's been gaffing since he was probably 10 because he's had a stutter. But that doesn't mean that he's not capable of being president. If I had a choice and the only thing was age, I wouldn't have somebody 78. And the same thing with a lawyer. This guy might be okay. He might have his faculties kind of all there, but I can guarantee you at 85, he's not what he was at 55 or 45 either. But, you take what you can get. And in the case of Trump, you're right. He could not find anybody. No. He could not find anybody, I'm sure, at this point.
Well, you remember
because he's already cycled through all the hacks in Washington who were willing to stand up for him for about a minute. John Dowd, and you could just name zillions of them went through the mill there. And
Well, those were the good ones. And then Jules has been, he's had his license taken away from him. And now, remember, they would go through that thing where, well, it's going to be a firm in South Carolina. Well, it's going to be a firm in Georgia. Well, it's going to be a guy with a file cabinet in Alabama that's going to represent the.
But wait, Britt, all those backed away in the end.
They did. Eventually, they would run through like they would run through like a week or 10-day cycle. Those people would figure out we're not going to get any money out of this, and then they would be like, well, we're out. We're going to go over here, and we're actually going to talk to clients who can pay us. That would happen like weekly, right? They would have some guy you never heard of in Seneca, South Carolina, taking the case. And he would kind of do a couple of things, and then he would shuffle some papers, and then he'd pass it along to the next bum.
Yeah, I want to sneak a few more things in here. Well, we're not sneaking. We're doing it in pub. Yesterday, which was Tuesday, as we speak, a bill passed in the House of Representatives that would yank out all the Confederate statues from the Capitol, as well as the bust of Chief Justice Roger Taney, the guy who was the Chief Justice when the Dred Scott decision was made in 1857, which paved the way for the Civil War, that said blacks basically were less than human, not citizens,
right?
All that terrible. So every state would have to remove and replace any statue that they have there. For instance, if North Carolina would have a statue of Jesse Helms. Well, I guess Jesse Helms wouldn't count as a Confederate soldier. He was close.
If he could have been, though.
And if Silent Sam was the statue representing North Carolina in the U.S. Capitol, they would have to take Silent Sam down. There you go. There's a good example there. Anyway, some of the famous Confederate generals are still up there, and they're going to take it around. Anyway, the point is that the vote to do this was, let's see, we had, God damn it. Don't you hate that when you can't find the goddamn number when you're looking for the goddamn number? I think it was 67 Republicans
that said keep them.
Here we go. 285 to 120. So that's every Democrat and 67 Republicans.
Okay.
120 Republicans said no.
Yeah.
Now, if you remember, it was 126 Republicans who signed that request that the election results in Georgia, Arizona, Michigan, and Wisconsin be overturned. Remember that? That back in December? So that seems to be, that 120 or so number seems to be the number of Republicans who are so far down in the tank that they're beyond hope. Biggest point of all, one of those 120 was our own favorite son of Donald Trump to get the Republican nomination for Senate here, Ted Budd. Ted Budd was one of the 120 who said, keep the damn statues in there, which is not surprising whatsoever, but it should be. This is the kind of story. I mean, it's there. It got published, but because of everything else that's going on, you didn't hear too much about it. And I just thought that was worth noting. Ted Budd, in the end, said, we need to keep those Confederate statues up in the Capitol. Thanks.
Yeah, so I guess he feels like there's some benefit to that as he runs for the United States Senate with the endorsement of Donald Trump. He must feel that that's what his people want to hear.
There's no doubt about it. It's not even a question.
Now, have his challenges, have Mark Walker and Pat McCrory said that he was wrong for doing that? Because I'm not hearing them criticize them for that. I'm not really sure.
I don't even know whether the story rises above just the reporting of it. I don't know whether they want to make this into a thing, because I doubt that any of them want to be on the record as saying they would have voted the same way, that they would have voted to keep the Confederate statues, but more so, they don't want to be on the record as saying that they would want to get rid of them.
Yeah.
Think about it. Think about it.
That's funny.
Let Ted Budd take the shit for it, and we won't say a word about it. We won't.
And that's one of those things where, you know, in a primary situation, you have to run way to the right, right? You have to somehow outright whoever, and it's going to be impossible. And then when it gets to the general election, you have to, you know, somehow explain to the people who might think that it's not a great idea to have Confederate statues up there in the hall in the Capitol building. You have to explain to those folks why you did it and why they're wrong. So it's a little tough to do that as we've re-examined a lot of our history. And by the way, the Confederate, you might call the Confederate generals, I don't know, the original insurrectionists. It's just something that came to mind. It's one of those things, you know, they were the original ones. They were trying to destroy the United States, the Union. So it would be very interesting to see how that works out. Let me get you. Yeah, go ahead. Well, I was going to say, let's go ahead and board the train to Crazy Town. I know you love the Tucker Carlson update. Here it is. Matt Gaetz now joining the Crazy Town. He demands the Inspector General investigate Tucker Carlson's claims of NSA spying. By the way, the NSA released a statement earlier this week saying that Tucker Carlson was absolutely 100% full of shit when he said that they were spying on him, and they said it was illegal for them to spy on American citizens, and that Tucker Carlson has never, will never, and could never be the target of any sort of NSA spying. But now Matt Gaetz, of course, who may be involved with some sex trafficking, they're still going through that, and alleged sex trafficker Matt Gaetz demanding that the Inspector General look into these claims that Tucker Carlson, who could be the nominee for for president from the Republican Party, if something happens to Ron DeSantis and Donald Trump, now something needs to be looked into to make sure the NSA is not spying on the guy who does the 8 o'clock show on Fox, Brad.
There's a simple response to this. Number one, Matt Gaetz has no standing to ask anybody to do anything, let alone demand that anybody do anything. He has no standing, and he's not to be taken seriously for this. And number two, why would there need to be some kind of official investigation of this story by anyone when Fox News itself, beyond Tucker Carlson, is not supporting Tucker Carlson in this quest? Right. They don't care. No one else talks about it. It's only spoken of by the conspiracy theorist and white nationalist Nazi that's on at 8 o'clock. Nobody else. And you know how Fox works. If they think that something is attractive, that there's a hook, that the fans of the channel, that the right wingers, the Trumpers, are going to be interested, are going to click, are going to run with it, they will pump it 24/7. It'll be on every hour. It would be the biggest deal ever. If this was a thing, it would be, yes, Tucker Carlson is being spied on. Right. And why isn't that being investigated? And why isn't Matt Gaetz getting a fair hearing on his demand? So it's a joke story. It's a comedy story. As far as I'm concerned, it's as much of a comedy story, this kind of parallel right alongside of it, as Trump, who, as you know, yesterday we said it, we'll say it a little bit more. The walls are closing in a little bit tighter today, a little bit tighter. And since everything in the world is about him, doesn't matter what it is, Britt, you dropped a can of peas in the grocery store on the way home, it's all about Donald Trump. It's Donald Trump, right? I don't know. It doesn't matter what it is. So he decides that he's going to open his fat mouth about the New York mayoral race, which was kind of roiled yesterday because they blew the count. They blew the count by 130,000 votes because they included accidentally, obviously not on purpose, some test votes that they were using because they have the ranked voting thing that's a little bit more complex than just counting the votes. And they fixed the problem. See, this is the difference between Trump world and everybody else. When people see a problem or they make a mistake, they apologize for it. They make it good. They admit they did it. They fix it and they move on. And that's what the New York Board of Elections has done. They've subtracted those wrong votes. Even a couple of the candidates are saying, this is not a thing. This is not a big deal. I think Ms. Garcia has said, I'm not concerned about this. They fixed it. It's a mistake. Don't worry. But Trump jumps in and puts out one of his idiotic statements and says, see, New York mayoral race, a hoax, not to be trusted. We're never going to know who's the mayor of New York City. And so he's trying to liken that to the fact that he was robbed.
Right.
And of course, there's absolutely no connection. You cannot do 50 degrees of separation and still be far enough away from what happened in New York City in their mayoral race and what Trump is trying to do to destroy the United States of America, its electoral system, and wreck confidence in the way we conduct our elections. But he had to do it. He couldn't help it. It's what he does.
Well, perhaps if Andrew Yang led some sort of insurrection into the mayor, the Gracie Mansion or something like that, then we might have some sort of, but again, the transitive property here, because this happened over here. I got screwed in Arizona and Georgia and Michigan and Wisconsin. Did you like I love the idea when in one of the books, I'm not sure if it's Bender's or it's Wolf's, when Bill Barr comes to him and he goes, look, there's 667 precincts in Wayne County there in Detroit. The reason they don't count them at the precincts and they bring them to one central location is because there's 667 precincts. It makes more sense for everybody to kind of truck it into one location, and then you count there. And then they go, as it turns out, Trump did better in 2020 in the city of Detroit than he did in 2016. However, he got slaughtered in the suburbs, which is what happened around America. It happened in, any state you want to talk about. You want to talk about Georgia, you want to talk about Arizona, you want to talk about any state. He did okay in this area, but in the suburbs where the election really mattered, he got killed. And Bill Barr points this out to him, and Trump's just taken aback that Bill Barr knows that there's 667 precincts there in the greater Detroit area. It just blows his mind. I love that. I love that he just throws down on that. Again, these books are going to be fantastic. I think the Bender book, see, the first Wolf book kind of, it was okay. There was some good stuff in there. This Bender book looks amazing. And I think it comes out July the 13th. And I think it's going to be really, really good. I think it's called Frankly, We Did Win This Election, I believe is what it's called. That's the one. And by the way, they didn't know. Apparently the staff didn't know he was going to say that when he went out on election night and made that stupid speech. They knew that he was in his mind. He didn't think he lost. And they knew that he was going to try. He thought they were going to try to, let's wait till they tally the votes. We don't have, the people have spoken, but we still are. They thought he was going to do one of those deals, but then he turned into, of course, the man that he's been his entire life. And he said, frankly, we did win this election, and I got screwed. He did that from day one because he was setting everybody up for that, right? That's what he set up. And you know how he set it up? He set it up for that. He told his supporters that mail-in voting is bullshit. So they didn't vote by mail. So they got killed in mail-in ballots. I mean, it's so obvious as to what happened. New poll out. C-SPAN has this one. Donald Trump is ranked the worst living former president, but he did beat 3 dead ones. And for the first appearance, I believe Obama finishes in the top 10 for the very first time ever in this particular poll, because they do it every 4 years. C-SPAN with some professors and some historians, and they say that Donald Trump by far is the worst living former president. Come on. I mean, how could you?
The 3 that are still below Trump are what? Andrew Johnson, James Buchanan, and
maybe Grant.
No, Grant wasn't a bad president.
Well, I think he's been redeemed over time. I believe over time that there's been some revisions into that, but it's somebody. It's Buchanan. He ties with Franklin Pierce.
He
ties with Franklin Pierce. Can anybody tell me anything that Franklin Pierce did? I'm sorry. I consider myself to be a fairly literate person. I know a little bit about history. I can tell you some very, obscure facts about just so many things, but I have no idea what Franklin Pierce did, other than he was really good on MASH. He was a very excellent doctor on MASH.
Oh wait, he invented the cotton gin, didn't he?
That was Eli Whitney invented the cotton gin. That's what that was, you big jerk.
I couldn't. I had nowhere to go. I had no line.
But if there was a statue of Franklin Pierce, by God, I would fight to have that thing still wherever it is. I would fight to still have it in place.
Oh wait, so But no, so Andrew Johnson and Buchanan were the two worst, and then Trump is tied for third worst with Pierce.
Yeah,
there you
that's
go.
right.
That's what it says.
That's the deal with that. So I mean, it's a very wide swath. And again, these are cultural elites. These are cultural elites that are coming out with this poll. These are just egg-headed ivory tower humans that are coming out with this shit, saying that he's the worst. He was the 14th president. He alienated anti-slavery groups by supporting and signing the Kansas-Nebraska Act and enforcing the Fugitive Slave Act. Well, there you go. There you go, Brad. He was the one that said you could bring them back, right? If they run away, you just bring them right back.
Yeah. All right. So Trump is down there lumped in with the people who helped foster the Civil War, right?
Mm-hmm.
Pierce and Buchanan, and then Andrew Johnson, who fucked everything up after the Civil War as a racist, and did everything he could to stop the Civil War amendments from being enacted. So it wasn't until Grant came along to fix that, which is why Grant's not a bad president, but holy shit.
And it makes sense because Trump right now is trying to foment a bit of a civil war, isn't he? I mean, that argument can be made. So there you go.
It's not a question. It's not a maybe, but he's got people amped up to do that. Now we're kind of at the end of our rope here today, but on the next Brad and Brittcast, and this will give us another day for the information to start to coalesce. I don't want to go into it now. The issue of are we backtracking terribly, too quickly, making mistakes in our approach to the coronavirus and masks and things of that sort? Because, man, the cross currents on this are unbelievable right now. And if you thought there was a point a few weeks ago where you go, well, should I wear a mask when I go out? It's getting worse. There are no rules.
Yeah.
And I'll just leave you with this after reading a lot about this today, because the consensus seems to be building that, quote, and I'm going to do it the way they say it on television, we're probably going to have to wear masks indoors again. And they stop there. They don't qualify it, okay? And the reason that that's said that way is because we need to virtue signal to the assholes who haven't been vaccinated,
right? But they're okay.
We're going to suffer as much as we're telling you need to suffer,
right?
And wear a mask.
We're not going to pick on the unvaccinated. We're not going to.
Right.
We're not going to do
this. You want to talk about bizarre political correctness? That's what this is.
I think you pointed this out. I think you pointed this out earlier this week. Is like all the stories about the Delta variant. Unless you're vaccinated, and the Delta variant means pretty much nothing.
Right. That being said, even if you are vaccinated, and we know that vaccines, they're not 100%. Okay. No. They're in the 90s if you're Moderna or Pfizer, and they're just below that if you're Johnson and Johnson, although the Johnson & Johnson vaccine is sliding further and further back in terms of, oh, fuck, I got that one. Shit, now what do I do? I think there's a lot of that.
Yeah.
Understandably so.
Sure.
It's not, it's a Corvair compared to, the Lexus and the cattle.
It'll get you there. It'll get you there. You might sweat it.
It'll help you. You won't.
A couple of lights might come on the dashboard. In the hospital.
Yeah. Right. But to be at this point right now and not acknowledge that, most of us, I know I'm more than willing, again, I hate to say this, if this is what it takes to make sure that fewer people are spreading the virus around, because the problem could be, we don't know for sure, Problem could be. Remember, this is a topic we weren't going to talk about today. We're going to talk about tomorrow, so we'll talk about it today.
Sure, we'll go ahead and do
Talk
this
about it tomorrow.
because we can do whatever we want to.
That even you, even me, recipients of the top level vaccines a few months ago at 90 or 95% efficacy, we theoretically, because it hasn't been shown that it's not possible, we could still carry the Delta variant, show no symptoms, and pass it around inadvertently. That is
don't want to do that.
Possible, not likely. And if we did have it, it would be a much lower level version of it, but that would justify, if the Delta is moving around a lot more quickly than the earlier versions, that would justify saying to everybody, hold your horses, let's mask up again for a while. We're going to have to suck it up. That doesn't mean we're going into lockdown. It doesn't mean no one could go to a baseball game or a movie anymore. But let's do that. And I would be willing to do that. I wouldn't play this game of, well, fuck, then why did I get a vaccine in the first place? If I can't not wear a mask forever, then fuck it. Why did I? You're an idiot if you think that, right?
I went to a grocery store. I went to a Food Lion 2 days ago, and I had the mask in my back pocket. And I was like, I don't know if we're still doing this. The sign clearly said on the outside of the store, if you're not vaccinated, you need to wear a mask. That's what it said.
Right.
So I go in there, and the custom of that place is it looked like everybody was masked up, including the employees. So I said, if that's the custom here, if everybody's doing that, I'm going to wear a mask. I have been vaccinated. I could show anyone that I have been vaccinated, but I'm going to go ahead and put the mask on for this 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever it was that I was in the store.
Right.
And
right.
I'm
what
okay
would you
with
be
it.
fighting? What would you be fighting if you said, no, I'm not
Exactly.
wearing? What would you be proving?
And the idiotic, you keep hearing about it. It's not really a thing yet, but I'm assuming at some point it will be. The mask burning parties, you see the people posting, we're going to have a mask burn. Again, this is one of those things that back in the day, it's like a Dixie Chick CD smashing party at your favorite country station at Kicks 109 or whatever. I'm surprised that they haven't done that at like your favorite conservative talk show. At a WBT in Charlotte, we're going to have a mask burning party. We got a permit. Come on out. We're going to have a band there. We're going to have some lemonade. We're going to have a mask burning party. It's the stupidity of it.
This is way stupider than burning albums. Okay,
it is. It really is.
I know this is breaking news. This is still life and death.
It is.
This is still life and death for millions of people. And sadly, as much as we just like to beat the shit out of people who refuse to get the vaccine, we are our brother's keeper here, and the only way we're going to get closer to 70% nationally and close to that number where we live is to keep doing the right things. And the right things for us, well, we've basically done them. We got the vaccine.
We did it.
I don't know about you. That really wasn't the most difficult thing I've ever done in my life.
No.
But then I guess I've had it.
No. It's a miracle. This vaccine is something that we prayed for a year ago. It came, and then people turned their noses. And it's. Well, I think you're right. We have to do the right things because the people who haven't gotten it by now are not going to get it. We're not going to get the aha moment. The light's not going to shine from the heavens. They're going to, I should go walk into CVS and go ahead and get that free vaccine right now. That's going to keep me and my family safe. It's over. I don't think we can convince these guys.
And look, if you've got 7.5, 8 billion people in the world, and we're a country of 325, 330 million, whatever we are, we're not that big a slice of the world, and we're supposedly doing better than just about every country on earth. But there are billions and billions of people around the world who have no access, who have no chance of getting the vaccine anytime soon, and are clamoring for it. And the thought that we have Americans who can't be bothered, who cannot be bothered to get something that is so available here. If you want to talk about American exceptionalism, it isn't just the fact that we have the biggest army and we have a Super Bowl every year. That's great. Aren't we wonderful? We're whatever the
all the guns. We have all of the guns.
This was it. This was the moment.
Yeah.
The technology existed. We developed it. Our companies did that. That was American. That was good American exceptionalism.
It was.
If we don't get the world vaccinated, if we don't get them vaccinated too, we're going to be living with this kind of forever. It's going to be, and there's a great piece I read. It's akin to AIDS, okay? Because AIDS is still around.
It is.
It was never really cured.
No, it's treatable though.
It's treatable, and it's at a much lower level.
People survive it. It used to be a death sentence. 40 years ago, that was a death sentence.
Right. And that's likely the way it's going to end up being. Yeah. But you don't have to be in the category of being perpetually really vulnerable to the worst characteristics of the disease by not getting vaccinated.
If there had been a vaccine,
have to do it.
If there had been an HIV vaccine in 1985 or 1986, do you think there would have been, 35-40% of the gay community that would have been resistant to it? I mean, I know people would have flocked for it. It would have been amazing. Those people who were especially at risk, like intravenous drug users and folks like that, they would have flocked to get an HIV vaccine back. And I just don't think there would have been this kind of resistance.
That's a little different. I would stick with polio or other diseases that are.
That's fair enough.
You have to stick with diseases that are not definitively only behaviorally communicable.
Although there's a bit of behavior.
Somebody and give them coronavirus, then that's a problem.
Well, there's a bit of behavior involved with this too, and it's complete stupidity. I mean, it's absolute abject stupidity.
It's passive stupidity. Yeah.
Back in the springtime, do you know that Canada was envious of us because of our rollout, because of the numbers that we were getting at first? The Canadians were envious of what they were just slow with their rollout, and we were rocking. We were getting folks up and. Now, of course, they've caught up. I mean, I'm sure that there are stupid, ignorant dumbasses in Canada who are somehow not going to get it. I'm sure that's happening. I don't know if it's at the rate that it is here in the United States. I'm not sure. But I know that in the beginning, they were like, man, the U.S. has their shit together. Usually we're kicking their ass when it comes to healthcare, and they're getting this thing out there. They're rocking with it. Now, eventually, of course, they caught up. But yeah, it's up to the people who are willing to do the right thing to tote the load for the dumbasses. And there are some of those dumbasses that are going to get this Delta variant and they're going to die and they're going to be in the hospital, and until their dying breath, they're going to swear it's not the Delta variant that took them out. That's what's going to happen. Just prepare yourself for that.
There have been these dress rehearsals for this on a much smaller scale for years in this country with the anti-vaccination movement. And sometimes it's associated with measles or other childhood diseases where you have pockets of people. Sometimes they're religious groups. Sometimes they're just remnants or children or grandchildren of 1960s hippies who live in enclaves in areas, and they refuse to get vaccinations. And what happens? Guess what? The disease occurs. And I'm just thinking off the top of my head here. Didn't Disneyland have to close several years ago?
Yeah.
Was it measles? Where they closed Disneyland? This is not the first time, with coronavirus. There was a big thing in Southern California,
right?
And they had to do it. So we know what happens when large groups of identifiable people say no to getting vaccinations here in the modern era. I'm glad we didn't talk about that today, so we can talk about it tomorrow, right?
Yeah, make sure you join us on Thursdays, Brad and BBCast, so we can discuss that.
Right.
See you.